Well, we got an update on the stimulus front, and we've got a deadline, folks. We could see a stimulus plan come to the table today. Now, I saw a bunch of videos this morning from different people saying, stimulus is here. New bill approved. Stimulus checks coming. None of that is true. Nancy Pelosi, though, over the weekend threw down the gauntlet and said, we've got a 48-hour deadline, Mr. President. 48 hours for us to iron out this language on contact testing, tracing, and vaccine distribution, for us to get this done before Election Day. 48 hours. It's now within 24 hours. So today, frankly, is the day that we could see finally an agreement between the White House and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and House Democrats. So Nancy Pelosi yesterday was on with George Stephanopoulos answering those questions. She says right now it comes down to language. And I think she makes a good point. This is the kind of wonky stuff that most Americans don't want to pay attention to. Their eyes are going to glaze over. What is she talking about? So just pay attention, though, to what she's saying, because I think she's bringing up a very good point. She's saying a lot of the White House negotiators simply aren't legislators. So they don't know that when you change a word from like shall, S-H-A-L-L, to another word, like these words have incredible weight in legislation because it basically gives either the president the power to sit on that money or he must spend that money. See, these like little words that they're going back and forth with right now on contact testing, tracing, et cetera, for virus stuff, as well as money for children. One thing that Nancy Pelosi has been pushing for, the earned income tax credit. So there are a bunch of different language wonky pieces that they're very, very close on right now. It's literally a matter of changing a few words. So folks, I mean, I'm being hopeful here because just think about a few weeks ago, how far apart we were. Now it looks like we're zeroed in on a price tag, which is right around that 1.88 trillion. Now it's just a matter of getting a few words ironed out. So here's Speaker Pelosi answering that question on This Week with George Stephanopoulos.
You spoke with Secretary Mnuchin last night. Yes. Any closer to reaching a deal?
Well, we're seeking clarity because actually, with all due respect to some of the people in the president's administration, they're not legislators. So when they said we're accepting the language on testing, for example, and we're just making a light touch. They said they changed shall to may, requirements to recommendations, a plan to a strategy, not a strategic plan. They took out 55% of the language that we had there for testing and tracing. And the tracing part is so important because communities of color have been disproportionately affected by this. So on this subject where we have agreement, we don't have agreement in the language yet, but I'm hopeful. And here's the big difference. Communities of color have more deaths than the white population. Let's just think of this. If you are a child, a Hispanic child has 8 times more chance of going to the hospital with COVID than a white child. A black child, 5 times more chance of going to the hospital than that. That's because we have not addressed the problem.
So the language specifically, and being able to trace which communities are being hardest hit and apportioning the money appropriately in those communities so that the federal government can't sit back or that it falls to the states where they can just sit on this money, which is what happened the first time. So to have that specific language in there. Now, I know it gets wonky. We haven't seen it yet, so we don't know the veracity of her claims. It's one thing we have not laid eyes on any sort of structure and framework yet to be critical of it. We have to sort of take these politicians at their word. We have to take Nancy Pelosi at her word. We have to take President Trump at his word. We have to take Stephen Mnuchin at his word. All of that, as you know, right now in this political climate is incredibly hard to do because there's so much posturing going on. 15 days until the election. Stephanopoulos, though, pushed her on the 48-hour question because over the weekend she said 48 hours. We have 48 hours to get an agreement. Here's what she had to say about this 48-hour agreement.
Instead, they put this sentence. Contact tracing will be paid for by the federal government as part of the $75 billion. Okay, we agree with that. But given state difference, each state shall establish a strategy that is appropriate to its circumstances. CDC can provide guidance to the states on elements. Can, no, must. But in addition to that, we have to have a national plan. You cannot leave it up to the states
So if you
decide
don't,
how they're going to address the minority community.
if you don't get that agreement, if you don't get that agreement in the 48-hour deadline you said, what happens?
Well, here's the thing. The 48 only relates to if we want to get it done before the election, which we do.
Well, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, so which we do. But we're saying to them, we have to freeze the design on some of these things. Are we going with it or not? And what is the language?
She also went on to say, what about Mitch McConnell? So this is the question I see many of you asking even right now in the chat room. Well, if it goes to the Senate, is it dead? She says, well, Mitch has said a bunch of things, but one of the things that he said is that if there is agreement between the White House and House Democrats, we will bring the bill to the floor of the Senate for a vote. That contradicts earlier comments from Mitch McConnell, which was, if we don't have something that's around 500 trillion or 500 billion, well, we don't have an appetite to pass it. So, and by the way, I mean, it would be political suicide for Mitch McConnell to not pass something after they finally have an agreement on this. I don't know that he cares, quite honestly, but we'll see. And this is where Democrats should have done it all along, is give it to Mitch McConnell to be the bad guy. You know, you want to play good cop, bad cop. Get a framework put together, send it over to Mitch McConnell's lap. Now it's up to him. And then President Trump, I mean, look, he will feel the wrath of President Trump if he starts to waffle on this. This is President Trump's perhaps last hope at some sort of a Hail Mary pass here to get, you know, to win this election. The polls are looking increasingly just dire for President Trump. He's now even on the campaign trail talking about what he might do after the election, which is leave the country. Of course, this is a smart political play to basically say, woe is me, looks like I'm down, I'm losing. That's what he did with Hillary, remember? I don't know, she's doing pretty well in the polls. Then he crushes her. But again, watch what the president is doing, not what he's saying. They're spending so much time and effort right now in places where they thought they should have been way up. And they've pulled up stakes in other states where they basically gave up money. They're not running ads anymore in certain states that they won last time. It's incredibly troubling. The fact that Texas right now is even in play. I mean, if over 30 electoral votes, if President Trump loses Texas, I mean, that would be a disaster. So, where is President Trump's head at on the stimulus? He was asked that yesterday as he was on the tarmac going to one of his campaign events, and he responded to that question.
Any update on stimulus talks? Is there any?
Yeah, we're talking about it. I think Nancy Pelosi, maybe he's coming along. We'll find out. We want to do it. I want to do it at a bigger number than she wants. That doesn't mean all the Republicans agree with me, but I think they will in the end. If she would go along, I think they would too on stimulus. So let's see what happens. Thank you very much. See you over there.
Let's see what happens. AJ, I see what you said here in the chat. It says, you know, he didn't crush Hillary Clinton. You know, she won the popular vote. Yeah, that's true. But the popular vote doesn't matter. The electoral vote matters. And if you lose Pennsylvania, you lose Wisconsin, you lose Michigan, you lose the Rust Belt, which was won by Obama, you lose Florida, that's a wallop. She got crushed. These are states you must win. You have to win if you're a Democrat. How did you lose those states? So popular vote or not, we have this horrible electoral college system. It's a reality. So you can lose the popular vote, more people can like you and vote for you, but you can still lose the election. In that regard, she got walloped. Because remember, it's like a chess game. It's not about the popular vote. It's about the pieces on the chessboard. It's the certain states that yield the highest electoral votes. And she lost those. So that is the very latest on the stimulus. We could see a stimulus framework emerge later this afternoon as they're ironing out these final few words, folks. I mean, this is not far apart now. I can't believe I'm even saying it. But if we do have a stimulus bill that's passed, remember, 15 days right now until the election, The chances of us, other than direct deposit, seeing some sort of a $1,200 direct stimulus check in the next few weeks, it's highly unlikely. I don't imagine that we would see these checks until maybe right at Election Day or after Election Day. But wouldn't President Trump love to see direct stimulus checks going to the American people right on Election Day? I did it, folks. Here's my stimulus I promised you. I just find it interesting, though, that he's there on the tarmac saying he wants a bigger stimulus than what the Democrats want. Again, he's saying this. It makes no sense to me. So you can say that to the cameras, and yet you don't have it in your bill. You don't have the offer that Steven Mnuchin put forward. It's less than what Democrats want. So I don't know where this number is coming from. We want it to be bigger than what the Democrats want. Okay. Show me. What does that actually look like? So go ahead and smash that like button, folks, and please subscribe to our channel. You know, YouTube shows me that over 70% of you watch our show but aren't subscribed yet. It really helps us grow, and if you smash that like button, it lets YouTube's algorithm know that, hey, share this with somebody else that could learn about the stimulus, who could learn about what's going on in our economy right now, not be fooled by some of these other clickbait videos that exist out there. It really helps us and grow and help educate the right people here on YouTube. So thank you so much for your support in that regard.